Hi, welcome back. Last week we chatted about the moment of regulation in the circuit of culture and how it affects and is affected by public relations. Today we'll consider the next element in the circuit of culture, production, as a part of doing public relations in a global environment. When we talk about production, the production of public relations, we commonly talk about tactics, things like writing a news release or a speech or public relations plan. Production of those tools is central to the PR practice, and much as tactics are usually a part of a larger PR plan, production is a part of a larger issue in the circuit of culture. In the circuit, production is manifest in all aspects of public relations, introducing and reintroducing power dynamics from creation to implementation of a campaign. And very often that power dynamics is dictated by time constraints or budget concerns or the need to teach basic PR skills in educational settings. As we discussed earlier, each moment in the circuit of culture is affected by both power and culture. The production of public relations materials is not an exception in that sense. And today we'll see how and why that happens and what we can do to balance between them. First, let's see how power relations affect production. It's probably needless to say that most of the global PR agencies are headquartered in Western countries. And it's a common practice for them to open their offices or collaborate with small local agencies around the world to claim international presence. But once that presence is established, what happens next? Then those international firms, they want everything to be done their way. They require those local agencies and host countries to implement standardized systems and practices, to follow certain scripts, to meet the standards of their headquarters. And because those regional local firms are dependent on their headquarters, at least in terms of money, they have to comply those Western standards and ideologies. And of course, I'm not saying that standardization is a bad thing. In fact, it can be very useful. What I'm saying is that power imbalance is inherent to international public relations practice. Another problem with standardization and shared corporate missions and ideologies is that all the bad things that exist in the Western PR industry, such as gender imbalance or maybe racial inequality, all these things are getting transferred along with headquarters ideologies and standardized procedures to their non-Western branches as well. Is there a way out? Let's take a look at a few options we might have. One thing we can do as an international agency is to adopt the so-called ethnocentric approach. We decide that one size fits all and that all our PR practices and procedures will be exactly the same in all countries where we have presence. And we've just discussed the issues with this approach. The next option we have is to move in the opposite direction and decide that all our agencies in each part of the world should practice PR differently in accordance with their local cultures. This is the so-called polycentric approach. Let's say we have presence in 20 countries and each of our agencies have their own set of standards, procedures and policies. Sounds a bit crazy, right? The golden mean between the two approaches is something that's called the hybrid approach. It suggests that there are some basic public relations principles that are appropriate in all cultures, and there are some culture-specific things. So what you can do is you develop a general framework and customize its specific parts in accordance with local cultures. When we talk about public relations campaigns, the hybrid approach is something that encompasses glocalization, a very important concept in international public relations. Glocalization can be defined as the process whereby global corporations tailor products and marketing to particular local circumstances to meet variations in the consumer demand. Let's take a look at the two versions of the Starbucks website. I took the screenshots within the same day, and one of them is the US version of the website and the other one is the Russian version. I apologize for making so many references to Russia, but I realized that we're studying international public relations and not PR in Russia. But I just feel like talking about relevant personal experience would be more authentic than using textbook examples. And also, I think that the fact that I am familiar with both cultures helps me to give you some insights to why there may be some differences or similarities. But let's get back to the websites. What do they have in common? I would say that the menu, the layout, and the Starbucks logo look similar, if not identical. Even if you don't understand the language, you would still be able to recognize that this is a Starbucks website, right? So the brand just didn't lose its identity here. But what is different? I would say the focus, the first thing that you see when you open the website. What I see on the Russian website is those glasses with tea, and what I see on the American website is the company's joint CSR efforts. And I think that maybe because tea is still more popular than coffee in Russia, and maybe because American customers are more concerned with CSR than Russian and probably than any other nation in the world. In Russia, companies don't bother that much about CSR, probably because of the economy issues. People are struggling to survive and they don't have that much time to think about others' well-being. And also maybe because our culture teaches that good deeds should go unannounced, and if someone heavily advertised its CSR efforts, that would be perceived as a show-off or as something that is being done for public relations purposes only. These examples of how a product, or in our case a website, can be glocalized look pretty simple, and it might create an illusion that glocalization is something that can be easily done. But there are some things going on beyond the process which make it incredibly difficult for companies to design the right message for the right audience. Any public relations campaign is in itself an exercise in power. Before we implement a campaign, we should first get it approved by our supervisors within our company and then by our client. And of course we want to get that approval because we had spent so much time on it. We had been working on that project. And as a result, what often happens is we design a project that would please the tastes of our bosses, the power holders, instead of pleasing the tastes of our audiences that we wanted to reach. This is something called an internal audience problem. People who assess our project within our organization and within our client's organization, as well as those people who design the campaign, they may be remarkably different from our target publics in terms of our race, socioeconomic status, and culture. And even if your client approved the project, it may fail simply because it does not appeal to the people for whom it was meant to. Another paradox we may encounter is called the closed loop. In public relations, as well as in some other professions, recognition is something that comes from the PR community, from other PR professionals, because our job is supposed to be invisible for the external audiences. And people for whom we actually work, for whom we create and implement our campaigns, they don't even know about our existence. None of them would ever come to you and say, oh, you know, I've read your press release, good job. That will never happen. But we still have that need and self-affirmation. And for this reason, some of us tend to create something that would please the tastes of the PR community. But again, the tastes of our peers in public relations may, and in fact they are, differ from the tastes of our target audiences. If you read the book that is called 99 Francs, or maybe you've seen the movie, you may remember that the lead character created two versions of the yogurt commercial precisely for that reason. One version was intended for the real consumers, and the other one was for the advertising festival. One more thing that we should be aware of is the imagined community paradox. The thing that we called our target audience is in fact not real. It is something that we constructed in our heads, and it is what we think it is, which is not always an accurate representation of real people, because our research methods have never been perfect, and also because people are subjects to constant changes. The issue of the closed loop, the internal audience problem, as well as the misperceptions regarding our target audiences exist even in non-international settings. But you can probably imagine how much they deepen when cultural barriers come into play. And the best thing we can do, perhaps, is to constantly analyze and reevaluate our audiences, as well as our own perceptions of them. So that's it for now. See you.